Take a seat. We are about to get started. I'm Jonathan Dworkin, Vice President for Policy and Communications here at NewDEAL, and we're just thrilled to be here with you in Phoenix for this year's Ideas Summit. So with that, I'm very proud to introduce NewDEAL Forum CEO, Debbie Cox Bultan.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I am Debbie Cox Bultan, CEO of the NewDEAL and NewDEAL Forum, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to Arizona. I'm so excited to be here for the next couple days. I personally, given all the negativity and chaos going on around, am just ready for a chance to exhale, maybe, to see some old and new friends, and to share ideas that are working for the American people. So I want to start with just a huge thank you to all of you for joining us. I know that it is very easy to get discouraged right now with all the divisiveness, with the name calling, with the circus. But I love when we get together. I'm always reminded that amid all of this, the work that we're collectively doing is so important. We're rejecting cynicism and the idea that politics is a game. We know that getting up every day and trying to solve problems and deliver for the American people is both a privilege and a serious responsibility. We know, in short, that politics is an honorable profession. There are serious issues facing the country, of course, including unprecedented attacks on democracy and a movement to take us backwards, particularly on women's rights. But there's a lot of good things happening right now here, too, that I want to celebrate and that we should be grateful for and proud of. COVID is mostly behind us. The recovery and job growth is strong. The historical federal investments in America have helped stabilize communities in the short run and are pumping money into long-term investments that will help all of us, things like affordable housing and broadband and more. We're breaking down barriers to access to quality healthcare, education, transit. And AI is here, and while it comes with some challenges, it can also be harnessed for good, making government more accessible and more effective. So we gather in this critical election year to be inspired by each other, to learn from each other, clear-eyed about the threats, but also resolved to continue to build on the progress that's been made over several years. In that spirit, as many of you know, the summit moves around every year to different cities, and I wanted to tell you a couple reasons why we chose Phoenix this year. First, Maricopa County was ground zero for democracy the fight for democracy in 2020. And thanks to NewDEAL leaders, including Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, who was Maricopa County recorder at the time of the 2020 elections, and then beat back a serious election denier to win Secretary of State. They held the line. Adrian and his colleagues remain some of the most important voices in ensuring free and fair elections around the country, and they have lessons to teach us all. Second, we wanted to take a look at how many of the innovations that are happening here in Phoenix under the leadership of NewDEAL leader Mayor Kate Gallego can be exported to other cities and states. I should say one of my favorite stories is Mayor Gallego is the first NewDEAL leader to succeed a NewDEAL leader. She took over for Mayor Greg Stanton when he was elected to Congress. So we're going to make sure you're thinking about who's going to succeed you, and we'll get them in here too. Phoenix is the fastest growing city in the country, as many of you know, and under the mayor's leadership has become a leader in transit, climate and sustainability, housing, and so much more. And it's also a great example of that partnership I was talking about, that federal, state, local partnership, where investments in things like from the CHIPS Act have enabled the mayor to expand on her already great work to bring manufacturing jobs to Phoenix and to create good quality jobs and prepare Phoenix for the future. And of course, there's another reason why it's so important that we're here today. One that we could not have predicted when we picked Phoenix a year ago, which is, of course, last week's Supreme Court decision restoring the near total ban on abortion from 1864. That bombshell decision made Arizona not only ground zero for democracy, but also ground zero for the fight for reproductive rights. And yet another reminder of what's at stake in this election. So heading into the event today, the NewDEAL did a poll conducted by our friends and partners at Mercury Analytics to ask Americans and Arizonans about freedom, about democracy, and about leadership. And I wanted to share some of those findings with you as we get started today. All right. So our three main takeaways from the poll that we did. One, freedom and democracy matter to voters and will be a top issue in driving them to the polls. Number 2, Democrats have an opportunity to take advantage of the GOP's anti-freedom agenda, especially in Arizona. And 3, Americans want leaders that get stuff done. First, freedom is on the ballot. We ask people, when thinking about freedom, to tell us what they think government should do. What does it mean if you care about freedom, the government should be doing about that? And across the board, and by large majorities, you can see that people thought government should be working to improve public safety, to ensure free and fair elections, increase access to education, and protect reproductive rights. For me, this slide was heartening, actually, because we hear about the MAGA movement thinking about government is the problem, government is the enemy, we're going to tear it down. There's very large majorities that say, no, government has a real role to play here in making our lives better. When we asked about which political party most people identified with freedom, Democrats had a lead, actually, albeit a small one, which was very heartening, given that how much the word freedom has been used by Republicans over the years. Interestingly, Arizona, the lead for Democrats was much wider even. 42 to 27 among all Arizona respondents thought Democrats, associate Democrats with freedom, and 40-28 among Latinos in Arizona. It's also worth noting, and gives us a roadmap of some work that needs to be done, how high the independent response was that neither party is associated with freedom. When we asked people whether there were certain entities working to protect or undermine freedoms, the Democratic Party was at a net +7, the Republican Party net +3, and the MAGA movement -10. Again, showing that extremism is not playing well. And in Arizona, the Democratic Party was still at +7, but the Republican Party was down -9, and the MAGA movement was down even further at -14. And again, this survey was done before the Supreme Court decision, so I think there'll be further movement there. There's an opportunity, obviously, here, and we need to seize it. The numbers, of course, reflect mistrust. In some entities, we'd love all those numbers to be higher, but I wanted to just point out that we are particularly heartened to see that among all the groups or entities that we polled, state and local government were among the highest rank entities that people felt protected their freedoms. When it comes to whether this will matter come Election Day, majorities nationally and in Arizona say that the party they associate with freedom will influence how they vote, underscoring the need to make a case for a freedom-centric agenda. The exception, again, is independents, who say they don't really trust either party or associate either party with freedom, so we do have work to do with that critical group in the electorate. Relatedly, we asked respondents which party they thought was most extreme or radical. This was interesting to me because strong partisans on both sides, as you can see, were not surprisingly about the mirror opposite of each other. And independents, again, gave by far the biggest answer in terms of the largest response that both parties are extreme, so there is more work to do with independents. But an interesting answer to me was the lean Republican response, which instead of being a mirror opposite of lean Dem, it was a little different. A full 58% of lean Republicans said that their party is more or as extreme, while less than half of Democrats said so about their own party. So that, to me, feels like there's an uncomfortableness among lean Republicans with their own party and an opportunity that Democrats can seize on. In Arizona, respondents were closer to the national independence numbers in answering both parties. But again, when it came down between Democrats and Republicans, they clearly thought Republicans were more extreme. This held true with a 0.7 for Democrats among all Arizona respondents and a +9 among Latinos. Finally, in the freedom bucket, it's worth noting again that with the backdrop of the recent Supreme Court case, that in our survey across all groups, every party, including Republicans, men, women, Arizonans generally, and even Latinos in Arizona, that there were solid majorities on the question of whether people thought the government should protect bodily autonomy and reproductive rights. You can see those numbers there. And I would say that given the backpedaling of a lot of Republicans here in the state and around the country, I think that they understand that political reality, but I think it's important that they continue to still push for the extreme policy, so something to be thought about and to be highlighted. We also asked a series of questions about the state of our democracy. You will likely not be surprised to learn that people are not feeling great about our democracy. Among all respondents, only 24% believe it is excellent or good, and that number is even lower among independents. Conversely, 42% of respondents said it was poor or terrible. Interesting, in Arizona, the numbers were a little bit different. With a starker partisan split, only 6% of Republicans saying it's excellent or good, yet 54% of Democrats saying the same thing. On a related question about whether the state of the American democracy is stronger or weaker compared to right after the election, the 2020 elections, only 22% said stronger, with a big partisan gap, a whopping 72% of Republicans and 53% of independents saying much or somewhat weaker. And in Arizona, where the anti-democratic forces have been defeated, the numbers are slightly better. So again, there's a lesson, I think, nationally for all of us there. And like with freedom, we also asked how much democracy or people's feelings about democracy would play into their decision and influence their vote in 2024. And a majority of respondents, including Democrats and Republicans, said a lot or somewhat. So democracy will be on the ballot. But given the partisan split that we're seeing, I think it's fair to say that when we think about talking about democracy, we have to address concerns that have been voiced by both sides, including the barriers to voting, as Democrats tend to talk about, but also reassurances about things like security and transparency. And we're going to hear a lot more about that from Adrian Fontes and his colleagues soon. Finally, we asked questions about what kind of qualities you're looking for in a political leader. And among the qualities that you can see here, including things like authentic and humble, uncompromising, charismatic, by far, the one that was deemed most important by respondents was to get stuff done. And that was true across party lines. So there's more information about all of this on our website, but again, the key takeaways for me are that freedom and democracy will be on the ballot. The Democrats seem to have made gains in being identified with freedom, something we need to continue to push on, and that there's a work to be done with independents and potentially an opportunity with lean Republicans. And of course, what should be good news for all New Deal leaders sitting in the audience is that they're looking for elected officials who are getting stuff done, and that is who you all are. So with that backdrop, again, I am just thrilled to welcome you all here to Arizona. I'm looking forward to a fantastic 2 days of just inspiration and remembering the work that's being done across the country and stealing ideas from each other and how we can deliver and advance these core freedoms of democracy and freedom. So with that, it is